For 4 years, not one native soul trusted his gospel. He stood at the edge of a Delaware tribal village, wool cloak tattered by wind and pine branches, a Bible swollen with rain and frozen tears pressed to his chest, his lungs burning with the cough that would eventually kill him, his boots caked with mud and ice. Settlers called him a fool. Fellow pastors urged him to return to the comfort of a New England congregation. Even his own family begged him to come home before he froze or starved or was killed by the tribes he sought to reach. His name was David Brainerd, a 28-year-old missionary born in 1718. And for most of his short ministry, he had nothing to show for every mile he walked, every prayer he prayed, every night he spent shivering in a drafty log cabin. No crowds, no converts, no visible proof that his sacrifice mattered at all. The question hung in the cold mountain air, unspoken but heavy. Why would he stay when every sign pointed to failure? Brainerd had not set out to be a martyr. He grew up in a wealthy Connecticut family, a top student at Yale with a bright future as a respected parish pastor, a comfortable home, a steady income, and the admiration of everyone in his community. He could have married his beloved fiancée, raised a family, and served God within the safety of the church walls he had always known. But the quiet, unshakable call of God settled on his heart in his early 20s. Go to the Native American tribes of the Northeast, who had been pushed off their land, lied to by white settlers, and written off as unreachable by nearly every Christian leader of the era. Everyone he knew pushed back. Why waste your life on people who will never listen? Why trade a lifetime of respect for poverty and danger? Why bury your youth in the wilderness? Brainerd did not have answers to all their questions. He was not fearless. He lay awake at night trembling at the thought of being attacked, of dying alone, of wasting years for nothing. But the call of Christ was louder than his fear, and he chose to go. The day he left Boston Harbor, fog hung so thick he could barely see the faces of his family on the dock, their hands waving as the ship pulled away. Cold salt wind cut through his thin coat, the rough rope of the gangplank leaving a blister on his palm that would take weeks to heal. He carried only a single suitcase, a stack of gospel tracts, his well-worn Bible, and enough money to last a few months. As the shoreline of Massachusetts faded into the gray mist, he knew he was leaving every part of his old life behind. But the rough Atlantic crossing was only the first of his trials. What waited for him in the forests of Pennsylvania and New Jersey would break every expectation he held of ministry. The first time he stepped into a Delaware village, humid air thick with wood smoke and the smell of pine hit him first, followed by the stares of dozens of suspicious faces. The tribes had learned over generations to distrust white men, who came with promises of peace, then stole their land, spread disease, and killed their people. They saw Brainerd as just another colonizer, not a messenger of good news. The language barrier felt like an impenetrable wall. Every word he fumbled through felt clumsy. Every attempt to explain the gospel fell flat, met with polite smiles that quickly turned to turned backs. They had their own spiritual traditions, their own stories, their own reasons to reject a God who seemed to belong to the men who had hurt them. Brainerd did not push. He moved into a tiny, leaky log cabin on the edge of the village, spent 12 hours a day studying the Delaware language, his tongue stumbling over unfamiliar consonants, his fingers cramping as he copied words into a tattered notebook by dim candlelight. He ate the same cornmeal and dried meat the villagers ate, helped them repair their homes after storms, sat with the sick even when he risked catching illness himself. For years, nothing changed. He preached sermons to empty benches, to small groups of curious children who ran away after 5 minutes, to elders who listened out of politeness but never asked a question. His tuberculosis grew worse, every cough bringing up flecks of blood. Every mile he walked through the snow, leaving him exhausted for days. He prayed for hours every night, his prayers echoing off the wooden walls of his cabin, seemingly unanswered. He received a letter one winter telling him his fiancée had died suddenly of fever, and he sat on the floor of his cabin for 3 days, weeping so hard he could barely breathe, asking God why he had been called to this place of endless loss and silence. He packed his bags that third night, ready to catch the next supply ship back to Connecticut, convinced he had wasted 4 years of his life, convinced he had misheard God's call. But as he reached for his Bible to tuck it into his bag, He opened it to a verse he had underlined years before: "Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life." He sat back down, the bags at his feet, and chose to stay. He did not stay because he saw a revival coming. He stayed because Christ had been faithful to him, even when he could not feel God's presence. The next morning, the chief of the Delaware village knocked on his cabin door. His grandson had fallen deathly ill with a fever, and every traditional healer had been unable to help. He asked Brainerd to pray for the boy. Brainerd followed him to the chief's home, knelt beside the child's bed, and prayed for hours. By sunset, the boy's fever had broken. The chief sat with Brainerd that night, asking him to explain the God he served. That was the first adult who ever truly listened to his message. 6 months later, the chief and his entire family were baptized in the frozen river at the edge of the village, Brainerd's hands numb from the ice, tears freezing on his cheeks as he spoke the words of baptism. Over the next year, 25 more Delaware people put their faith in Christ. Small, quiet seeds that would grow into entire congregations long after Brainerd was gone, spreading the gospel across dozens of tribal nations in the decades that followed. Brainerd never lived to see the full fruit of his work. His tuberculosis progressed rapidly, and he died in 1747 at just 29 years old, buried in a small grave near the village he had served, with fewer than 30 converts to his name. But the diary he kept, filled with his raw honesty, his doubts, his pain, and his unshakable faith, would be published after his death, inspiring tens of thousands of missionaries for centuries to come, including Charles Spurgeon, Hudson Taylor, and Amy Carmichael. He did not stay because he could see the legacy he would leave. He stayed because he believed faithfulness to Christ mattered more than visible fruit, more than comfort, more than his own life. If God called you to serve in a place where you might never see a single convert, would you go? If you were asked to give up every comfort, every dream, every relationship you held dear, for a harvest you might never live to see, would you say yes? If the gospel is truly worth every cost, what would you be willing to lose? Brainerd's life answers that question not with grand speeches, but with quiet, unyielding faithfulness. The call of Christ is enough, even when all else is silent.